Hi there, everyone. My name is Dana Sharp, and I'm the founder of the AdanaC technique and the AdanaC technique channel and the AdanaC channel on YouTube. Today is going to be an introduction to the AdanaC technique and the theories that kind of support the technique. I'm just going to show you a brief mind map that I kind of, put together this morning. It's kind of a variation of word collage. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the Netflix original Wormwood, where Eric Olson did his PhD in collage. But I've been dabbling a bit in word collage to help me as a person suffering from ADHD, try to compile my thoughts. And also, I'm an INFJ in the MBTI typology, the Myers-Briggs typology. INFJs are the most rare Myers-Briggs type. They make up about 1% of the population, and male INFJs make up less than that 1%. INFJ just stands for introverted, intuitive, feeling, judging. So those are just general terms that outline the personality type, I guess you could say. So this video is just going to be me talking. I had kind of thought maybe I might improvise this tutorial or theory explanation while improvising and singing at the same time, but I just kind of want to get the thoughts out there, the thoughts that kind of support the theory out there a little bit more clear, and not everyone really wants to listen to music and singing all the time, so I might come back and do an improvised version as well. So I'm going to just kind of use this as an anchor to help direct this tutorial, essentially. So I'll just briefly talk about myself. I'm the 38-year-old male. I live in Canada. I have a bachelor's degree in music from the University of British Columbia, and I specialized in opera performance. So I have a bit of stage experience and singing experience. I also was, a percussionist in junior high and high school, and I always loved dancing. And essentially, AdanaC technique is just a dancing technique that supports, a healthy lifestyle. And, my theory is that it also increases creativity by increasing synaptic response between the neocortex and the motor cortex, or the prefrontal motor cortex, or whatever. I'm not a scientist. I'm an amateur scientist, if you will. So that's a big disclaimer. Most of my technique is a culmination of different theories and techniques that have and have not been scientifically proven to work. How did I come up with the name AdanaC technique? Well, it's just Canada spelt backwards, and my name is in there in the middle, Dana, and then I have the capital A and the capital C there, just to symbolize that, I'm an electrician. I'm also a journeyman electrician in Canada. I got my certification through SAIT. And part of my theory is a little bit tied into electrical theory, motor theory, the whole kind of like theory came from the idea that, you know, man is a motor. Man is not a machine. You know, I've studied Nikola Tesla a bit. I don't have great memory recall, so what I'm going to try to do is link a lot of the information that, you know, I've compiled over kind of the last 4 years. That's about 4 years ago is when I started really studying dance. And that's really what really helped me understand my body a lot better. And it really helped my singing a lot. And yeah, so I'm just going to pick up this paper here and I'm just going to talk about the various techniques and theories that really encompass AdanaC technique. So a big one is the Theory of Relativity by Albert Einstein. So we know the equation E equals mc squared. So that's energy equals mass times speed of light squared. And Einstein's theory kind of revolves around predicting the existence of gravitational waves. Okay, so what else can I say about that? Okay, Einstein was also a musician. He was a violinist. And just a random fact, he enjoyed sitting in bubble baths, and that's where, and popping bubbles and playing with bubbles, and kind of that's, he says in his autobiography that, you know, that's kind of how he came up with his creative ideas. I'll also mention that, you know, okay, so AdanaC technique is kind of like a form of meditation as well. It's not a static meditation. It's more of a dynamic meditation. I studied a little bit of Osho, and we all know about the controversy around Osho from the documentary Wild Wild something. Oh man, I forget what it's called. Okay, so it's dynamic meditation. Osho talks a bit about like dancing and cathartic movement and stuff like that. This is not cathartic movement. Okay, this is very timed movement. Okay, so it's tapping into like a lot of hip hop styles, the pop and lock technique. It's also tapping into rapping as a technique or style. It's also tapping into beatboxing. And it has some elements of tap and elements of ballet. I haven't dabbled in those styles as much because they don't really support the technique or the theories as much. But of course, any type of dancing is good. Any type of movement is good. Okay. Also, within the technique, I draw a bit from Shaolin Kung Fu hand movements, right? Just this concept of moving while creating tension in your hands. And that tension in your hands while moving causes us to stretch muscles that we wouldn't normally stretch. And a lot of the stretching is through the back and the back into the shoulders and the hands, and a lot of neck movements, gentle neck movements and neck bobbing. Some of the neck bobbing technique comes from watching really outstanding R&B singers or R&B artists and how they feel the rhythm in their necks, and that kind of, supports flexibility and agility in the neck, and it stimulates our nervous system through our spine. And I'll go a little bit further into that in a bit here. Also, this style and technique has elements of EMDR. So there's more scientific research about EMDR than AdanaC technique. I'm not a scientist, okay? And I don't have funding from any universities or anything like that. Okay, so EMDR is eye movement desensitization reprocessing. So I'm going to add a link to that. You can Google it. It also has elements of TRE, which is trauma, tension, and stress release exercises. I had a little scribble there. I couldn't read it. And PNF. So that's proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation. You can Google that too. There's lots of PNF practitioners all over the place. You can look into that. It's none of these AdanaC technique is none of these things specifically. These are just concepts that feed into the technique and the theory, and they kind of validate the theory in some ways, and validate how the technique stimulates different parts of our minds, and increases synaptic response between different parts of your brain. AdanaC technique is also about increasing your ambidexterity. I don't know if that's the right word to say, but it makes you more ambidextrous, okay? So we're going to be talking a lot about like feeling the same way through your body and looking at yourself in the mirror and trying to make more symmetric movements, okay? Also, another thing I'd like to say about, tying in the theory of relativity, right? And I'll maybe from time to time say, this is the theory of relativity applied. It's equals mc squared or something like that. Or because in my opinion, music is kind of like the theory of relativity applied. We have frequencies or waves, right? And we alter the frequencies. We have vibrato for opera singers, right? Which kind of ties into the TRE exercises and theories. So, and the thing about music, and the thing that makes this technique more scientific in a sense, is that we're applying this technique to rhythm, the rhythm that we have in music, and frequencies, and rhythm is a frequency as well, right? It's a frequency outside of a frequency if you're talking about melodic rhythms, okay? So I'll be talking a bit about music theory, but trust me, it's not going to be very heavy. I'm a singer, okay? Okay, so let me see here. So when we're talking about the theory of relativity, in music, the theory of relativity is timed sound, or timed frequency, or timed rhythm, okay? Or timed pulse, beats per minute, right? And in dance, applying music to dance is timed movements, okay? And in singing, it's timed music, it's timed movements, and it's timed communication, okay? And we're going to see that more clearly with applying beatboxing to music. Yeah, okay. So also what I want to talk about is, I don't know. So my theory is like, it's not proven, really. The only, subject to experiment this theory on has been me. So it's pretty skewed, it's pretty biased. And, that's why I'm inviting my close friends and some people on YouTube to experiment with this technique and, monitor your moods and your creativity. See if you're thinking more clearly, see if you have more energy. So, there was an article I read about 4 years ago, and I may have saved it on my old Samsung phone. I can't remember, but I'm having difficulty finding this article now, but there are related articles. So, but I read this article, and I'll try to find it. Maybe someone knows which article I'm talking about, but it talks about, creating more synaptic response between your motor cortex and your neocortex. And there was a study that showed that this could be done through precisely timed movements, okay? So that's really what music, or, a metronome, is doing to help us time our movements, okay? And get them more precise. So music, or a metronome, is like a tool that we use in the AdanaC technique to help stimulate creativity. And a lot of the theory ties into, theories on evolution and kind of my own, loosely knit theories on evolution as well. So, over time and through the invention of tools, humans have become disconnected from our environment. And perhaps as a result of that, we have a disconnection to our bodies. Way back when, humans were hunting with very primitive tools, like maybe a rock or a stick, spear, if you will. We maybe had not domesticated horses yet. So we were doing a lot of running over long distances. And, we don't have a magnetic sense of direction like a lot of other migratory animals have, though I could be wrong, but that's kind of the consensus. And so perhaps, that's perhaps why we needed to, be able to use our neocortex to observe the stars at night for navigation, for us to hunt migratory animals over long periods throughout the seasons, and also, of course, to navigate using the position of the sun. So that concept is tied into the technique in the sense that we're trying to get more neck mobility, and we're trying to use more of our back muscles, and we're trying to, more so, to be looking up as we're moving or walking forward. And we're almost, in a sense, trying to get those muscles so that they're stabilized, so that, there's less jerking movement for us to focus on the stars and to think about our proximity to the stars in conjunction with the Earth, sort of thing. Little background information. So I've thought about this a bit because my grandfather worked for Ducks Unlimited. His name's Fred Sharp. He was like a regional manager or something like that. And my dad told me this story about how his mother, I'm not sure about the first name, Frances Wright, so Wright. One year there were some ducks and that were migrating or whatever, and the mother had hatched these ducklings next to their house. There's like a kind of like a aquifer or something like that running outside their house, and but the mother was killed somehow. Maybe she was hunted, or maybe she was killed by a fox or something, I don't know, or a coyote most likely. And these ducklings had no mother, so Frances, I don't know, I'll just call my grandma Frances. I never met her. She died of cancer, unfortunately, when my dad was in his late teens. She took in these ducklings, and she took care of them, yada yada yada. And something really interesting happened that my grandfather observed, and perhaps Frances also observed, is that after these ducklings hatched, they learned how to fly, and the next year they came back to the same place, right? We know this is like, migratory patterns and whatnot, and magnetic memory or something like that to help birds migrate. Well, anyways, Ducks Unlimited took advantage of this to help preserve the bird populations, if you will, mostly, ducks and geese. Sorry, these were geese, not ducks. What's the difference? Okay, so Ducks Unlimited decided, hey, we got all of these people farming these lands, and the farmers don't really want these, geese coming in and wrecking their crops and feeding off the crops. And, this isn't their natural food or whatever. So what they started doing was like, transporting ducks to different locations that weren't so good for agriculture, so that when the ducks were born the next year, or the next year after the ducks were born, they would head towards this new location, and it would bypass, the prairies, Saskatchewan, Manitoba sort of thing. Oh man, what does this have to do with AdanaC technique? I don't know. I just thought it was kind of neat. All right. So, what else can we talk about here? Okay, we can talk about the theory of man is a motor. What does that mean? Well, I don't know. A lot of people don't know, what makes electricity, Interesting, funny story. My father-in-law was an electrician, and the first time I met him, I woke him up as I was leaving the house or whatever, his house, and I was like, "Bye, Dave, take care." And then he just kind of woke up, and I was like, I don't know. I was interested in electricity at the time because I watched The Secret, and Bob Proctor was like, "You don't know where electricity comes from, but it exists and we use it all the time." Well, I wanted to know what electricity came from. And later on, I kind of understood it further. But my father-in-law said, this is what makes electricity. And this is the left-hand rule. So this is the Fleming. Wait a second. Current, blah, 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 no. I think it's the Fleming left-hand rule. So people are like, what does that mean? Okay, so here you go. This is kind of like a model of it's kind of like a fractal, if you will. Like how, but it's just an interpretation of how electricity works, but it's a model of how it works in our hands. So how the left-hand rule works is that if you put a magnet here, right? And you got the, South Pole here and the North Pole here. And then you got another magnet here. You got the South Pole here and the North Pole here. Well, you get magnetic lines of flux in between these two magnets, right? And how electricity works is if you have a conductor, and let's just say that this is the conductor right here, okay? If you have a conductor, which is my middle finger, and you thrust it upwards, right, through the magnetic field, right? If you thrust it upwards and the magnetic field is going this way, then you're going to get the current running that way. Okay. So what does this have to do with the AdanaC technique? Well, my theory is that man is a motor. Okay? So if you look, this is kind of how I kind of came up with this whole tying magnetism into, the AdanaC theory. So I bought a book on biology because I was like, I want to learn more about biology. So, I looked through the pictures and stuff, and then I opened up the section about the breathing apparatus of the human being because, I'm a singer. So in singing, we talk a lot about your diaphragm. So I looked down into the diaphragm. So you cut the body open here and then you look down into it. And I was like, you see all the musculature, okay? And I think like, oh man, that looks like a motor, Like it looks like the windings, the conductors inside a motor. And motors are generators, and generators are motors, and alternators are generators, and alternators are motors, right? Depending on how you spin the motor or whatever. If you want to learn about motors and electricity, there's lots of YouTube videos on that, I'm sure. Okay, so I was thinking like, okay, the theory of relativity, right? So Einstein was fascinated with compasses, right? The magnetism of the Earth, and the spinning of the Earth, and how that creates mass, and how it creates magnetism, right? And I kind of tied this theory in with Tesla trying to make a limitless energy supply or whatever, and also into like conspiracy theories on the pyramids, right? And there's kind of these theories about the pyramids of Giza concerning like aquifers underneath and like channels for perhaps that had more conductive material like inside these tunnels, like lacing the tunnels, and like insulating materials, to keep the conduction in there, and concepts about like how the magnetic lines of flux, pass over the Tower of Giza, and like perhaps maybe that had created some sort of like, a power generator, or like or maybe a motor essentially. So that's kind of tied into that. But the AdanaC technique came along with the idea of that, the theory of relativity has to do with predicting the existence of gravitational waves. Okay, so the AdanaC theory has a lot to do with efficient movements. Okay, so I've also dabbled a bit in minimalist running. Okay, and thinking a lot about running techniques and efficiency. And my cousin is a really he's older, but he's an amazing athlete and super agile, amazing skier, amazing snowboarder. And now he's an ultra marathon runner. And I asked him, what are your tips for running? And he said, learn how to walk. I was like, okay, man. All right. But he's right. Okay. AdanaC technique is also about simplifying things and making things slower, right? With subdividing rhythms and creating hemiolas to slow things down. And it's about moving in this sense of slow motion, but it's also about making precisely timed movements. And I'm going to make some demonstrations on exercises and whatnot. This is just a large overview. So where was I going with that? AdanaC technique, efficiency. Yeah. So when we're talking about motors, there's some terms to throw around or whatnot, but we're mostly interested in efficiency. And if we think of man as a motor, we have to think about efficiency. And when I see people jogging that aren't ultramarathon runners, or that aren't real runners or don't have good flexibility, I just shake my head. And I'm sure lots of minimalist runners shake their heads all the time too. I've tried to jogging, and if you're overweight and you're jogging and you get into it too quickly, you're just going to get shin splints, and you're going to get, you're going to break the bones in your feet. It's pretty much inevitable unless you have really good genes that, in the sense that you're naturally flexible. I have horrible flexibility. Before I started dancing, I've worked on my flexibility, but after dancing and kind of developing this technique, it's really been the only way that I've increased my flexibility. Before I started dancing, I could barely touch my toes, and now it's not even a problem. So the concept of efficiency and kind of how we apply that concept to the AdanaC technique is that in the theory of relativity, the theory of relativity is the prediction of the existence of gravitational waves, right? So we look at surfers or like kind of snowboarders, and you think, okay, surfers, they're riding waves, right? And if we think about magnetic lines of flux, passing over the horizon of the Earth, because the Earth's spinning, and it's basically a large motor because it's a spinning magnet. You're trying to imagine that you're riding those waves like a motor, right? And we're also incorporating concepts of Reiki, right? Just the hand movements, right? So not the mystical experience or anything like that. But if you put your hands together in Reiki like this, and if you do this for a while, it starts to feel like there's an energy in between your hands. In my opinion, and it's just my opinion as, a person doing this for a while. Yeah, it does feel like you have an energy, but, thinking of it, the body mechanics, it's almost like, and thinking of your body as a motor, it's almost like once you really get in there, it's almost like that energy in between is actually just everything is working in sync and you're getting efficiency, okay? And the analogy I like to use with running is like, you watch people that are jogging or someone that's not good at running, and you're like, oh, that person wouldn't have a chance against a lion, or that person could never be able to chase down a gazelle over the period of a day, right? Because they're inefficient, they're sloppy, they're clunking, they're heel striking, right? They're not using their forefoot to, take the impact. And we're going to talk a little bit about, minimalist running and not wearing shoes with heels, because wearing shoes with heels cause your Achilles tendon to get shorter. So we want to stretch that out. And, and we want to use the other muscles too, the counteracting muscles, building up strength, building up flexibility. And the analogy I like to use is think about a deer, right? A deer running, right? And then compare it to how we see people who aren't, Usain Bolt, right? And think about how, a deer runs. It's just, it's like prancing, right? It's like they're floating. It's like they're being driven by a wave. They're going with the flow, and their tail is up. That's something else we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about thinking of our arms, right? We could, like in motor theory, we could say they're armatures. Electrical joke. Just kidding. But actually what we want to think about is our arms are like tails, right? We're bipeds. Homo sapiens are bipeds. We don't have a tail, but we do have a neocortex. And that's what helps us think differently about our tails, right? We don't have tails. We have arms. And our arms are kind of like wings. In a lot of ways, we're more like birds, right? But we don't have wings. We got these, okay? And then we're going to be talking a bit about techniques from hip hop and mostly top rock and a little bit about breakdancing, though I'm not in good enough shape to be breakdancing. Trust me, I'll be breaking limbs if I start breakdancing right now. But, people who are studying breakdancing, they could get something from this too. Okay? So, what we will be talking about is top rock, the style of top rock, which is the introductory section of a b-boy battle, a breakdancing battle, right? So top rock is the introductory of your set, if you will, during a battle, and you're not on the ground yet, but for the judges, and we'll be seeing this in the upcoming Olympics, which is really cool, breakdancing in the next Summer Olympics, right? So we're going to be talking about the drop, right? The drop. And I'll try to post some links about the drop, right? But this is almost, I'll try to do a little thing here. So, my shirt's not tucked in. My mom's not going to be happy about that. So, in top rock, we're using our arms as tails to counteract gravity. So as our body goes down, we're throwing mass up, right? And we're making fists just to centralize the mass as though we have balls in our hands to help give ourselves a little bit more feedback. And we're using our arms to help cushion the blow, to make the motor work more efficiently, okay? Right? And then something else I want to just make reference to that kind of helped a lot of the style and technique come together is one of my favorite b-boy artists. My favorite b-boy artist, b-boy Sonic. He's somewhat Brazilian, and he's also I think he was raised in Denmark. And he has a lot of great sets in the Red Bull competitions. One of my favorite is where he's wearing kind of like a kung fu outfit. It's just all black with white shoes or white soles on his shoes. And I saw an interview, I think, of him talking about how he was incorporating kung fu styles, right? And, watching this artist, this b-boy artist, dancing to me as a musician, and watching his precision of rhythm in his top rock style and his floor work was extremely riveting. most b-boys are more like gymnasts, right? A lot of them do have gymnastic backgrounds, and they don't as much have backgrounds in music, okay? So they're a little disconnected from the melodicism of music and disconnected to the rhythm of music. And a lot of judges, take that into consideration, okay? A person's sense of rhythm and precision and their interpretation of music. Oh, there's one other b-boy artist I want to mention. Oh, what's his name? Ooh. I'll just tag him in a link. Yeah, shucks. Okay. What did I miss here? Well, man, I think that's everything. Well, yeah. Okay, also, this is actually pretty important. So, also something that we're incorporating into the AdanaC technique is breathing techniques that are associated with pranayama techniques, right? So it's Eastern tradition. It's tied in with yogic practices, but I say it's like pranayama in the sense that we're doing a lot of beatboxing and rhythmic breathing, right? And that's kind of what pranayama is, except they don't generally do this to music or time it. It's more, like the Wim Hof breathing methods, okay? And I'd like to point out also, at a time when, COVID is a pandemic, right? And people are dying because they don't have strong breathing apparatuses, right? So this technique is a great way to enjoy music and enjoy exercise. I recently saw a video or an article in the New York Times that, my wife shared with me about opera singers teaching people how to breathe. It's not hard, people. Pavarotti used the Franco Corelli breathing techniques. You can just Google that. If you want to simply, increase your breathing, Google Franco Corelli breathing technique, okay? Like, you don't need to pay an opera singer to teach you how to breathe, okay? Because, yeah. But take a lesson with a musician. If you take a lesson with a musician, a singing teacher or whatever, they're going to teach you the basics of rhythm and subdividing, just the basics. And then you can take some of the exercises, that I'm talking about here, and you can kind of solidify a foundation behind that. I'd also like to mention that part of my technique was somewhat helped by a really great singing teacher and old friend of mine, Neil Craighead. You could take lessons with this guy. With him, we focused a lot on like lip trills. I'd incorporated some tongue trills into the exercises as well. And a lot of releasing of jaw tension and stretching of your palates and stretching of your tongue and stretching your jaw and facial movements, right? Also, this technique encompasses techniques that I learned from a singer named Brad Huffam, who sang for the Met Chorus, and there's lots of people that I've learned from over the years. I could give some shout outs to other great singing teachers. Nancy Hermiston, who's the director of the University of British Columbia. And people bash people with arts degrees, and like my dad's like, what are you going to do with opera degree? Here it is. Okay. People underestimate creativity. Okay. Here I am, giving away all my ideas for free because you know what? I think they're important and they should be shared. And, you know, a person just has to hope that, you know, that generosity will come back somehow. So yeah, I'm going to be uploading some videos over the next couple of weeks. Hopefully they'll be a lot shorter than this one. Shout out to my good friend Dan Shook, who gave me the suggestion of making 1-minute videos. I don't know if that's going to be possible or not. I seem to have a bit of a motor mouth, if you will. Yeah, what else can I say? I'd like to thank my patron, my wife, who's a corporate lawyer for a pipeline company, right? I mean, you know, money makes the world go round. Yeah, I think that's about all I got to say. Thanks for listening, guys. I hope you made it this far. Like and subscribe, share on Facebook, because, you know, a person's got to make a living, right? So, and, hey, corporate sponsors, I'm talking to you, Meryl. I got some minimalist running shoes that I got to show right here, right now. Okay? And I'm talking about these bad boys right here. And ultra minimalist running. Ultra. Who else can sponsor me? Let's see. How about these guys? Who are they? Ultimate Ears. What else? Sony headphones. Wait a second. Aftershocks. Nike. Come on, guys. I need sponsors. This stuff isn't free. My patron is going to lose her job anytime soon because of me, most likely. All right, guys. Keep it real. Bye.